Evolving is maybe not the right word. It's just try and find different ways of keep maintaining my interest.
Before we get into this one, I just want to say that when I first started the mixtape, I wrote down a list, 5 dream guests, people I didn't really think I'd ever get the chance to talk to, but hopefully would. And today, I'm ticking off the last one of those 5, Baxter Dury. Over the last 20 plus years, he's built a career on doing things his own way, no formula, no overthinking, just instinct. And in this chat, you'll hear exactly why that works. This is the Mixtape with Baxter Dury. Welcome to this week's Mixtape, and today on the show, it is a pleasure and a privilege to be chatting to Baxter Dury. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm so early in the morning, but I'm still good.
Yeah, I have it the other way around myself quite often. I do interviews with American artists and UK artists, and I'm up at like 4:30, 5 a.m. sometimes for interviews, but it's all good. It's all good. So you're coming to Australia, mate. April the 28th, Melbourne Forum, 29th, Roundhouse, Sydney, livenation.com.au for tickets. Just a couple of dates, mate. You're going to be hanging around a bit longer though, spending a bit of time?
I think we're in New Zealand next, and then I'm off to Brazil or somewhere, so we've got a bit of a schedule. No, but
Okay.
unfortunately not.
Oh, that's a shame. Never mind. So I wanted to just first talk about when you first came up on my radar as an artist. I bought a compilation CD, funny enough, in Newport, HMV, and it had Oscar Brown on it. I think it was called A Quiet Riot or something like that. It was a double album. Very different sounding to the new album, Allbarone. I just wanted to ask you, first of all, over the 20 plus years, whatever it is, since Oscar Brown came out, have your creative process changed at all or evolved?
Yeah, evolving is maybe not the right word. Are you just doing something different? You know, I don't know if you get better or worse, or you grow, it doesn't get more complicated. You're just looking for ways. As an artist, not beholden to a band, I can go any direction I want to, and I have a kind of fan base that's pretty flexible. So I just try and find different ways of keep maintaining my interest, really.
And on the new album, Allbarone, working with Paul Epworth on that one, how was that working with him, and what did he bring a lot to the table in terms of creativity versus just a normal producer?
Yeah, I mean, the reason he was involved is because he wanted to write stuff and be creative. I think he'd taken a bit of a hiatus, and he hadn't been writing music that much until we collaborated. So he got heavily involved to my benefit. You know, it was good. It was a pleasant experience.
With your lyric writing, Baxter, I'm really keen to know, like, do you sit down and say to yourself, right, I'm going to write this today or tomorrow or whatever, I'm going to set aside some time or sit down? Or do you one of those, like, do you sort of like take notes as you're going through sort of your day and life and come back to them later?
I don't know if there's any real pattern, really. I mean, most of the time I can sort of conjure up something on the spot, and that's kind of how I operate, really. It was semi-lazy, maybe some sort of neurodiverse syndrome I've got, undiagnosed sort of thing. There's a sort of valve missing in my head. I'm not very premeditated, or, I'm not very approach things in a very organised way. So it's all a bit random and 11th hour.
I wanted to ask you about this question. I was laying awake last night trying to make it sound less Alan Partridge, but I'm just gonna lean into it. The Fred Again collaboration, how did that come about? Are you actually friends, or did he approach you and beforehand? How did it work?
Do you know what? I had a friend in common that had actually was working with him, I think, and I think there was a sort of formative stage of his sort of global success. And I'd never heard of him, and I think maybe he was a fan of one of my songs called Miami or something, so he wanted a similar kind of rhetoric or vibe on one of his tunes. So that's how I met him. It was a very pleasant, posh bloke. He still is a posh bloke.
Talking about Miami, I think it was Miami. I've heard a clip or something somewhere. Was it Billie Eilish is a fan of that, or I heard her talking about it on a podcast or something like that? She did a
podcast about dad, actually, in lockdown for Apple, I think. Someone sent it to me, and they were going on about that song. Maybe her dad had played it to her, and they were sort of praising it in a weird way. Yeah, that was quite weird.
Fantastic. Love that.
Just back on collaborations, I was talking about Fred again just then. Who would be your dream collaborator if you could work with anybody? Who would you want to work with?
Well, I don't know really, because I don't know if I need to collaborate with anyone. Not that not in an arrogant way. That I just don't know about who it would benefit, because where I would fit on their record, or I would like if someone said like Tyler the Creator, can you say 4 words on the end of my song? I'd be really pleased if I could just say exit over here, please, or something stupid.
I saw him in Perth recently. My son's a massive fan, and I took him. It was his first ever gig to Tyler the Creator. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, great one to share with my son. And let's talk about vinyl, mate. As a new Bandcamp, there's loads of packages, signed cards, different variants and stuff like that. You lean into the vinyl sort of side of things quite a lot. And I listened to your book where you talked about Housefire, where you lost like a box of vinyl or something like that. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say you are a bit of a vinyl head. You're a bit of a vinyl collector.
I'm not actually, to dismiss something. I'm in a kind of label that sell vinyl as a part of the subsistence. The way they survive in that kind of indie realm is they sell a lot of vinyl. I actually find owning things chaotic, so I'll ruin I can't be bothered to take it out of sleep, put it on the thing, change a needle, get it done. That is just I'm so anti their sort of fragileness of owning records. I'm totally unbothered. I'm happy that everything's on some imaginary data thing. I quite like being monitored. I like CCTV cameras.
All right, and just on the book as well, I'm gonna guess there might be a second part, because it left it before you sort of went into your creative part of your life. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about that came to me when I was listening to the book was, you talk a lot about the life on the road with your dad and being on tour and the chaos surrounding that and the whole sort of circus of being Dury's son. But at what point were you aware of him musically and listened to one of his songs and went, oh, what a banger?
I don't really know, mate, to be honest. I think it's just all a bit of a, I could ask the same question about, something that your family might have done. It all merges into kind of childhood, cloudy memory, and I don't really know the facts and times and whether I had any great epiphany when I was young. It was just the way it was, if you know what I mean. And you write a book and you just have to allocate some dates so it's easier for people to read, but whether those events were seismic, I'm not sure.
You're listening to The Mixtape.
The Mixtape is brought to you in association with Giglist. Giglist is your one-stop shop for all your live events. If you're looking to get out and experience some live music, you can filter by artist, venue, suburb or date. If you are an artist, it will take you less than a minute to list your gig for free on the website. The Mixtape brought to you in association with Giglist. Gigs in a list.
Let's talk about your mixtape track choices then, mate. So, as you know, the show's called The Mixtape, and I like to get guests on and dig into their influences and inspirations by asking them to pick a few songs for a mixtape on the radio show. We'll drop them in as we're talking about them. So, track 1 of your mixtape, Baxter, is an attention grabber. What are you going to kick it off with to draw me in and make me want to listen to the rest of your tape, mate?
Oh, what am I going to start with? Well, I'll start it with King Kuta by Kendrick Lamar.
Great choice. What makes that an attention grabber for you?
Just bass lines and, he's sort of topic, subject matter, his sort of energy, weird, just a brilliant kind of, it's got a kind of old jazz arrangement, and then it's got a kind of hip-hop, a sort of primitive hip-hopness to it, and it's just the way he's yelling or talking is kind of in between musical and accusative. Like, that's the way he is. I mean, he's a product of a system, isn't he? So, and he's wildly smart. Not whether he's always morally right or whatever, I don't know how to justify what he does always, but he's very clever, and it's quite potent the way he sings, and it's quite scary, I find, and it's quite scary sort of reflection on where he's from.
Track 2, Baxter, is what's a song you sing in the car or the shower?
I mean, do you know what I sang in the car yesterday? It was a Whitney Houston song, "Teach the Children." What's it called? That tune? Teach the Children.
Yeah.
God. That's the one I'm singing.
Is it Children of the Future?
Lovable.
Greatest Lovable. That's the one. Yeah. Track 3, Baxter, what's your favourite cover version, mate?
Kurt Cobain's band, what was it called?
Nirvana.
Nirvana doing the David Bowie probably, and that acoustic thing. I think that's probably it.
Yeah, that's a great one.
The songs sound better than he did. I think that's the only time a cover version's ever worked. It is the bass sound, and I think just the way they set it up and his sort of pathos. I mean, it's quite obvious, but
It's a fantastic album. That's one of my favourite go-tos, that for sure. Track 4, Baxter, is a little bit deep. What is a song that you wish you could play to your 18-year-old self? Can be from any era. Could be from last week or 1920.
I'll probably play the worst song I ever made and then say, try and avoid this. That's something I'd done that I wasn't proud of. I'm not sure what that moment was, but there's probably a few things that things I've said I would say try and avoid. Fred again? No, not that. I don't mean that.
That's a banger. We can't leave that one out.
No, I know. Do you know what? I'm not always into the culture of Fred again. I find it maybe it's a bit designed algorithmically to manipulate success in a way that's a bit cynical.
Yeah. No, I get you, mate. I get you. It's the way songwriting's going now. With the songwriting, it's like chorus is in the intro. Do you know what I mean? Like that's happening a lot more and more now.
It's just the way that they operate. It's an optimism cult, and
that's a great way of putting it. All right, at track 5, if you're making up your mixtape for a love interest or someone you're interested in, you want to get them interested in you, what would be a song you would use for that, mate?
I put the whole of War of the Worlds with Richard Burton narrating it, just to see. Like,
if you got that in common, if that works, mate, it's meant to be for sure, definitely.
Totally.
And finally, mate, track 6 is a deep cut album track or B-side.
I don't even know what a deep cut is, a thing that people were into, but they're not in. It's not on a single, so I don't really understand what whenever it goes about
deep cut is like, deep cut is basically like an album track or a B-side or something that's not very sort of mainstream that is in your house.
There's a version of what's it called, Rose and Harlem. What's that song called? There's the
Spanish Harlem.
Spanish Harlem. Yeah, but the guy, I think it was actually, what's his face that produced it? That tore up the my memories, because it's so early in the morning, is a bit shattered. So I'm not being very clear with who's the famous producer that
Rick Rubin?
No, big curly haired guy did all the soul records.
Phil
He
Spector.
produced a version of Spanish Harlem as a demo. You could look up that and you'll find that, and I know it's not Benny King singing it; it's somebody else. Not the most factual answer you were ever going to have this morning.
Don't worry, mate. I'll dig it out.
Dig it out, and it is incredible, and it sort of has you can hear Harlem in it and stuff, but it's pretty rough on a tape somewhere, and that's incredible.
All right, we'll round it out just quickly with a quick fire 5. And these are all about touring and live shows and stuff like that. What's on your tour rider, mate? Anything weird or interesting?
Oh, cherry tomatoes, hummus, the stuff we don't eat.
Do you have a pre-show ritual?
I try and just quite karmically zen and try not to, if a cousin turns up you haven't seen for 8 years, don't let them in. They will disrupt your psyche, Somebody wants to talk something deep,
That's great advice. Great advice. Is there any one thing that you always take on tour, like a home comfort or an essential item of equipment that you always take?
Pathetically, I read my Kindle. That's what keeps me chilled.
That's excellent. Excellent. I imagine there's plenty of time to kill on tour. What's your favourite city to play live, mate?
There's a few, actually, but Paris is always great for us. But then, Amsterdam, that is pretty special.
And finally, if you could time travel to see one concert in history, which concert would you choose?
Sly and the Family Stone, at some sort of point of their, when they realised how good they were, their full lineup, all the best, somewhere in San Francisco at some point, probably just before his decline, before the savage drug abuse took place, and Sylvester, whatever his name was, Sly Stone, was just at his peak and beautiful and amazing, and I don't think that's the ultimate musical experience.
Baxter, thanks so much for coming on the show, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. It's the Allbarone tour, April the 28th, Melbourne Forum, April the 29th, Roundhouse, Sydney, livenation.com.au for tickets. Safe travels down under, mate, and we'll see you when you get here. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, mate. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's Mixtape. If you would like to get more from the Mixtape, you can catch up with over 150 archive episodes by visiting themixtapepodcast.com. Also there you'll find links to the YouTube channel, my social media pages and my Patreon if you would like to get even more content that doesn't go out on the radio show or the podcast. You can secure your Mixtape Backstage Pass. All of those links are available at themixtapepodcast.com. You've been listening to The Mixtape and I've been your host, Mark. Until next time.